whose certificates have been prepared but they are not around to collect, the Commission will arrange for them to collect the certificates from the supervising national commissioners.
INEC presents 417 legislators of last National Assembly election with certificates of return.
Federal government expresses commitment towards eradicating HIV scourge drastically by 2030.
We cannot celebrate yet, as almost 1 million Nigerians living with HIV are currently not on treatment.
ECOWAS Chairman President Buhari dispatches special envoy to Benin Republic.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on building collapse and aviation safety.
Right now, we all know basic economics says shelter is ranked second on the list of basic human needs. But the type of structure that's talking about the design and construction, of course, as we all know, have evolved with civilization.
Well, that's right. Now, the structure and type of shelter are basically where people live or transact their businesses, of course, have been driven by the dynamics of civilization. Worldwide, for instance, buildings are usually constructed to take into cognizance natural occurrences. And in some locations, of course, those occurrences have to do with earthquakes and, of course, ocean surges and other potentially devastating occurrences.
Indeed, Kingsley, of course, but in this part of our world where such conditions, I may say, are practically absent, buildings are constructed at the whims and caprices of the owners and their contractors. Now, the driving force here is barely safety, but money. So, in order to save costs, professionalism is compromised.
So, building collapse in Nigeria has often been attributed to human factors, such as Clive has already indicated, quackery, and more particularly the use of substandard materials. Of course, what you get is not only building collapse, but also the loss of precious lives.
Now, let's fast forward to Wednesday's event in Lagos, where a story building, a 4-story building, of course, a housing, nursery and primary school, residential apartment, and as we gathered, a shop collapsed, killing some pupils, injuring many others. Of course, a lot of people have described that as a wake-up call.
Well, I also recall the incident that occurred last year in the Jabi area of Abuja, where a building collapsed, leaving 18 persons trapped and 2, unfortunately, dead. A report, of course, from the Federal Ministry of Power Works and Housing estimates that a total number of 54 buildings collapsed across the country in the past 4 years with varying degrees of casualties. So
it is with heavy heart that we're compelled by 2 incidents, of course, which occurred this week, in which many people died. First, of course, the building collapse in Lagos, and then the crash of the Ethiopian 737 MAX 8 airline, which, of course, crashed on Monday. To revisit building collapse and aviation safety on Good Morning Nigeria today, I am Claire Adelabu Abdul-Razak. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Claire, thank you very much. The Ethiopian airliner crashed actually on Sunday morning. Sunday morning, thanks. Now, but there are pertinent questions to raise. What are the causes and usually the challenges of building collapse? And more particularly, how can there be more effective crowd control measures in times of emergency, such as building collapse, so that the appropriate response agency can have free passage as well as unhindered access from the crowd to carry out their activities? My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Claire. And also welcoming you to today's edition of the program, broadcast live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
You know, Kingsley, when I hear this wake-up call, I keep wondering, are those people responsible, you know, for regulating constructions and all that, are they sleeping perpetually? how many times do we have all these wake-up calls?
Well, again, that's a very significant point you have raised. For the property that collapsed on Lagos Island, we understand that about 1,000 of such buildings that failed the integrity test have been earmarked for demolition. But of course...
Since last year.
Yeah, but there's been resistance. And you know, there's also a political issue with forced removals. We saw that, for instance, in 1990, when the then Morocco was flattened by the military administration of Raja Rasaki, of course, with General Ibrahim Babangida as president. The backlash, of course, was significant. So if you mark those buildings for demolition, what are the alternative measures that the residents, or more particularly the property owners, would have, you know, before they have the opportunity of reconstructing their buildings? All right,
Kingsley, I'm sure the guests we'll have this morning will give us more insight into what can be done. But we'll also have coming up on today's program our usual complimentary segments that, of course, we'll have time to review the newspaper, see what news, of course, are trending on their front pages. We'll be talking business, and if we do have time, we'll look at sports and foreign and some entertainment news. But right now, Comfort Amodo is in our news studio. She's ready to bring us, of course, some of the news. You heard the headlines earlier on. Comfort, good morning.
A very good morning, Claire and Kingsley, and good morning, Nigeria. Now, 101 senators-elect have been presented with certificates of return by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. This follows the conclusion of elections in those senatorial districts.
This time around, we want a relationship that will be properly characterized between the legislature and the executive, characterized by consultation, by coordination, by partnership.
By the grace of God, we are going to make our mark.
My major concern will be how to perfect the electoral process to make it a little hitch-free and rancor-free for our people.
We would like to see how we can transform Nigeria football, looking at English Premier League as a test case.
Meanwhile, 316 members of the House of Representatives have also received their certificates of return.
We are representing the people. What our people want, that we should be our command.
And by God's grace, we believe that what transpired in 2015 and the 8th Assembly will not happen this time around.
To sponsor a bill that will tend to address the issues of internal democracy in our political system.
Support the government in any drive for good governance, make good laws.
I'm sure the members will work very well together and will produce leaders in the Assembly that will do well for Nigeria.
And in other news, President Muhammadu Buhari says the governing All Progressives Congress is determined to introduce a more robust program of action in the next level towards responding to genuine public aspirations and sustaining its presence in all parts of the country. The president stated this while receiving in audience a high-powered delegation from the Bargu Kingdom, led by the Emir of Bargu, Mohammed Haliru Dantoro.
The infrastructure you mention in your constituencies, I assure you that I will try and do what I can, and that since I'm going to be around, God willing, for the next 4 years, I have made a promise. The ministers responsible to comply.
The stage is now set for Nigeria's fullest potentials and best talents to be unleashed for meaningful change. Mr. President, we humbly urge you not to be distracted in redeeming the battered image of our country.
Now, following the threat by members of the opposition in Benin Republic to boycott the parliamentary elections scheduled for April 28th, ECOWAS Chairman President Muhammadu Buhari has dispatched his special envoy, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyama, to meet with President Patrice Talon.
And we had excellent discussions with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Benin and with the President of the Republic. And, we're very happy. There's a lot of flexibility, openness that the President has, indicated. And so it was a very good mission. We conveyed the message of President Muhammadu Buhari.
My president was happy to receive this message from his brother. He explained the whole thing to my colleague. And what is also important here is that President Talon is an open-minded person.
The Foursquare Gospel Church in Nigeria has congratulated President Muhammadu Buhari on the renewal of his mandate by the Nigerian electorate during the recent presidential election. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, indicates that a letter addressed to the President and signed by the General Overseer, Reverend Felix Meduoyi, on behalf of the Board of Directors, leadership and entire worshippers of Foursquare Gospel Church in Nigeria, said Mr. President's victory at the presidential poll held on Saturday, February 23rd, 2019 is a testimony of God's divine providence over his life. They commended the administration for providing the enabling environment for a generally peaceful and successful election. The statement went on to say that the church prays that God will enable Mr. President utilize this God-given mandate to continue to forge a strong, viral and united Nigeria, irrespective of race, religion, or region. And President Muhammadu Buhari is convinced that the end of HIV/AIDS as a public health threat in Nigeria by the year 2030 is truly in sight. This was while announcing the results of the Nigerian AIDS Indicator and Impact Survey, which estimated the number of persons living with HIV in Nigeria at a significantly reduced 1.9 million. The president, who described it as critical turning point for HIV epidemic in Nigeria, called for concerted efforts by stakeholders towards pushing for the last mile.
I am delighted that these more accurate figures indicate that fewer Nigerians are affected by HIV. However, we cannot celebrate yet, as almost 1 million Nigerians living with HIV are currently not on treatment. The end of AIDS as a public health threat by 2030 is truly in sight for our country. Let us therefore work collectively and push for the last mile.
And wife of the president, Aisha, Muhammadu Buhari has emphasized on the need for pregnant women to make themselves available for HIV tests in order to guard against mother-to-child transmission of the virus in Nigeria. Mrs. Buhari has also been reappointed as UN AIDS Special Ambassador for the elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV in Nigeria.
I wish also to make an emphatic call on all women in this country to test for HIV when they are pregnant or expecting. This will be one sure way of ensuring that those women who are living with HIV can receive treatment and give birth to children free of HIV in Nigeria. Finally, I wish to assure you of my total commitment to create awareness on HIV-related issues, advocate for more support at different levels, and also to ensure the integration of HIV services into maternal and child health programs in Nigeria.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back in a moment with Kingsley and Claire after the break.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
All right, welcome back. Now it's time for us to take some business stories. Let's go over, therefore, to our correspondent on the business desk.
Good to have you join us on Business News. Today is World Consumer Rights Day, and as Nigeria commemorates this significant day with the rest of the world, consumers in Nigeria want service providers to render what is commensurate with what they pay for. They frown at the exploitative nature of Nigeria's business environment that has compelled many customers to be at the mercy of these providers.
For instance, this morning I woke up, I did not sleep with light, you understand, and only to find out in the morning that there was a disconnect on my pole. And I reported to Abuja Electricity Distribution. And I was expected to pay for the cost of ladder, and then for the cost of the service. I mean, fixing the wires that have disconnected.
I've had scenarios where a lot of people complain all the time, and most of the times the kind of feedback they get from the service providers are not welcoming.
If you want to revamp the creative industry, for instance, how would the artists find something to do if all the hotels will patronize foreign artworks, maybe artworks from China?
With this year's theme, Trusted Smart Products, some consumers want law on warranty reviewed.
The warranty for products should be extended from a year at least to 2 years, because some of these products, after a year, they get spoiled. Apart from smartphones, even electronics we normally use at home, they have that problem. You buy a washing machine, like after a year, the warranty has expired, it will get spoiled.
They, however, implore agencies of government concerned with the implementation of consumer protection law signed by President Muhammadu Buhari on February 6, 2019 to ensure consumers' rights are protected.
The implementing agencies, by this act, they should use it as a springboard in order to push for the rights of the consumers. It has given them now the legal, more legal backings.
In experts' opinion, World Consumer Rights Day is a chance to deliver real impact for consumers and remind the world about the importance of observing and enforcing consumer rights. Still on business news, the National Bureau of Statistics has released the average cooking gas price watch for the month of February. It puts the national average cooking gas price at 2,067 naira for a refill of 5 kg cylinder, compared to 2,039 naira in January and 2,155 naira in February. It also put the national average diesel price at 225.61 naira per litre in February 2019, compared to 225.9 naira in January, while average kerosene price is put at 305 naira per litre in February, compared to 306 in January. Now moving on to other commodities. As equities market raises previous day gain, with Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index depreciating by minus 0.48% to close at 31,210.79 basis points, as against 0.15% appreciation recorded previously. Next is a graphic representation of the closing figures. The stock market report wraps up business news at this time. Many thanks for your time.
All right, Kulu Mohammed there on Business News. Thank you, Kulu. Let's now, time to, of course, take a look at the newspaper review. That's next.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebe, is with us on the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome as always.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin. New Telegraph. I have the New Telegraph and the Sun. The list story of one, of course, is coming from the Lagos building collapse, and then the other has to do with the presentation of certificates of return to the legislators elected at the federal level. New Telegraph has it as follows. Lagos building collapse. Woman commits suicide after losing 2 children. And you have 5 riders to that. Parents bury their children. Health workers extorting us. Survival. I spent 3 hours under rubble praying. My sister's 18-month-old son died in crash. And it's painful seeing my son in critical condition, cries mother. And you see the photographs there of the survivors of the building collapse in Lagos on their hospital beds, apparently in Lagos. Said survivors at general hospitals, one on Marina and then the other at Bagada. So that's coming out of the building collapse in Lagos. Now, above the nameplate of the New Telegraph, Kalu, Amosun, 98 senators elect get certificates of return. Also, Dogara, Bajabia Miller, and 338 members elect. And then back again to the foot of the front page of the New Telegraph. Says, Rerun polls. Oshibajo meets Adamawa and Bauchi governors. With 2 riders, PDP, we are confident of victory. ANEC keeps mum on rivers. And wireless headphones may increase radiation and cancer risks. It is on page 10.
All right, I have the leadership and the late story, but let me take it up from the building collapse Kinsley just read. Now, on the front page, that's on the right column, you find it there, 1,000 buildings under threat of collapse on Lagos Island. Now that's very, very not funny at all. Okay, let me take you back to the lead story. Tribunal grants PMB permission to inspect election materials. You can find the details of that on page 4. And it comes with the rider INEC 6 overhaul of Electoral Act and task NAS on timely passage. Just a little bit below the nameplate. NAS, no certificate of return for Okorocha and 42 others. Check out the details of that on page 8. And federal government begins preparations for President Buhari's inauguration on page 11. And HIV and AIDS prevalence drops in Nigeria. And the last one, just a liner below the picture story, federal government sues Nigerian breweries over copyright violation. Bayo, over to you.
Sadly, the collapse building in Lagos, the clearing of the rubble has come to an end. But residents have been lamenting. On one hand, they are angry that the government officials are using the issue of collapsed building to extort from landlords. They also complain that the building that actually collapsed, the parents had complained about the structure of the former school before they moved to the current structure that collapsed, apparently moving from fry pan on into fire. Sadly, a boy, 3-year-old boy, his name was Said Olabi, he cried, trying not to go to school. He said he didn't want to go to that school anymore. His last father official forced him and took him to school. Later on, his father was called, and when the boy was rescued, he survived. He had injuries to his head, the eyes, and he's receiving treatment in hospital. There are about 1,000 buildings, like Claire indicated, that have been earmarked for demolition on the Lagos Island. And so something has to be done very quickly before another disaster happens. Because the tendency is that most of the landlords and the tenants are complaining that they don't have money to go and get another accommodation. They better leave before they put their lives into harm's way and
that
probably
that was a critical point Kingsley raised, earlier on, but I hope we do find a way around that.
The other one also at Onitsha yesterday, a truck driver lost control. He was conveying kerosene and he rammed into 19 persons. Unfortunately, 7 of them, 6 males and 1 female, died. 12 others survived, but they are seriously injured and receiving hospital treatment in hospital. Governor Willie Obiano has set up a panel to investigate the accident. His concern is that it's the second time there have been accident about that same location. In June of 2018, a tanker conveying petrol also lost control and entered an Aba Road motor park and killing about 69 persons. The Anambra state government is to take care of the bills of those who were injured in hospital. And the issue of Rerun elections that is expected on March 23rd, a high court in Yola has ruled that the Rerun election for Anambra be put on hold. This is sequel to a suit that was filed at the Yola High Court by a movement for the restoration of defense of democracy. The party is alleging that its logo was omitted on the gubernatorial election and is therefore demanding of the court that a logo be replaced and the whole election, governorship election, be run afresh. Also at the tribunal, the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress and the APC have gone to the Presidential Election Tribunal to seek permission to inspect all materials used by INEC for the presidential election of February 23rd. The court granted the permission, and the appellant are saying that the plaintiff are saying that they need to get those material to prepare their defense against a possible suit against their victory.
All right, let me quickly take the editorials.
Just before you take the editorial, there's some curiosity about the order coming from the Adamawa State High Court with regard to directing INEC, not to conduct the supplementary elections scheduled for the 23rd of March. I'm just curious. There are a number of issues arising from jurisdiction and therefore the competence of the court to issue such an order. But if the court or the plaintiff didn't get an order restraining INEC from going ahead with the principal act itself, which is the conduct of the election, is it a supplementary election that you're not going to ask INEC not to complete? So if your rights or your interests have been affected, what is the quantum of your rights now in the supplementary election that can in any way affect the totality of the election? Or are you directing INEC not to reckon with the entire results following from the first leg of the conduct of the election on the 9th of March?
They had disposed of 2 affidavits, and I think the gross of their comment is that in the main election, their logo was omitted and they ought to have been part of the election. Therefore, they won the elections afresh.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. That's the point, Bayo. At what point did you raise that?
All right, that's a legal matter.
You get what I'm saying?
Kingsley is a lawyer. Yes. I'm not. I don't know. Bayo is a journalist. Let's quickly take a look at the editorial.
He speaks on legal issues, yes.
All right, Kingsley. The editorial is taken from Daily Trust, and it's captured, "Declare War on 4 Army Worms." Now, 4 army worms. Fall army is, of course, the name given to a pest that attacks mainly maize crops. Now, its biological name is Spodopetra frugipeda. And this paper is saying, in the absence of natural control or good management, it can cause significant damage to crops. It prefers maize, as I said earlier, but can feed on 80 other crops, including rice, millet, sugarcane, vegetables, cotton, and the consequences can only be imagined.
Yes, it is a pest that was discovered in the Central Africa and West Africa. And the Nigerian Association of Maize Farmers is raising the alarm that if something is not done very quickly, it is going to endanger maize production in Nigeria. Presently, Africa produces about 6.5% of world maize, and Nigeria produces the highest as far as Africa is concerned. And if the initiatives of government to diversify towards agriculture so that we have food sufficiency in the nation is to be achieved, then we must wage war against this armyworm that is ready to wage war against our maize production and other crops. And therefore, the association points out that in December last year, the Minister of Agriculture actually inaugurated a committee on this. And what the association is demanding is that the committee should get to their acts together and work to stem the threat from the armyworms.
All right.
All right, yeah. Bayo, just before we let you go, I'm just throwing this in. Maybe it's something that will come up subsequently. From the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper, right at the foot of the front page, it says, supplementary poll. 5 arrested for buying PVCs in Kano. I'm sure you've read a report or heard of it, that some of these PVCs are being sold for as low as 500 naira.
Yes.
Supplementary poll. I mean, the whole idea, of course, is to therefore deny such persons the opportunity of participating in the supplementary elections scheduled for the 23rd of March. One simple issue, in my opinion, that it raises. Do some Nigerians realize the worth of the PVC? Do we therefore, have to go back to debating issues that were well and alive before the adoption of universal adult suffrage?
All right, Bayo and Kingsley again declaring war. I'm wondering if this war is a conventional war on full army. But that's where we wrap up this segment of Newspaper Review. Bayo, it's a Friday.
Yes.
We wish you a pleasant weekend.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back in a moment.
Helen!
Hey, where's your mom?
Today is her toilet day.
What?
Helen! Toilet day? Tomorrow you're hosting a party and it's a matter of my reputation. Even if you spend your entire day cleaning with all this, it still won't be party ready. Impossible!
Challenge?
New Ticker Harpic 10X. Even if you use this solution 10 times, it won't give you the same cleaning like Harpic because its new Ticker formulation sticks to the bowl better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow!
New Harpic 10X gives me the freedom from toilet day.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency Conference. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I was so excited to sing in the choir.
And your shirts are always so white.
I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me. It's Jik, of course. The original trusted bleach, which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. It's Jik's best ever extra whitening power. Just Jik it.
All right, welcome back. If you've just joined us, this is Good Morning Nigeria. We're broadcasting live on the network service of Africa's largest TV network. There's no doubt about that. That's the NTA. Let's start our discussion now on building collapse. And for that, we'll take you to the streets to seek the opinion of Nigerians on what they think are the causes of building collapse in the country.
Actually, it was a very big tragedy that happened to entire Nigerians. It's not just Lagos State, it's entire Nigeria that happens to. Because losing the peoples of that caliber is a very big sad news, even to the parents, to we, the entire Nigerians. It affected everyone, but the government itself needs to wake up to the core, because if you see the structure or the buildings in Lagos, I think you need a total rehabilitation.
Why the building is collapsing is that because they are not using good materials. When you use good material to build a house, it will not collapse. Last time in AYA, there's a building like that. That was what happened to that building. The engineer died. All the laborers, they died. Let them be using good material. Enough is enough.
Anywhere in the world, something happens, people try to get it around. Maybe they can do one or two things to help the people. But maybe we just enlighten our people that anytime something like that happens, they should try and control themselves. If you see like 30, 20 people that can rescue you, stay behind. Don't form too much crowd on the place so that it will be easy for the people to take action.
Law enforcement officers should cordon off such a place and then make sure that even those that are sympathizers, you understand, do not cross the parameter of where it's being cordoned so that professionals can do their duty effectively.
It's a pathetic situation, actually. But way forward, I think we have some engineers that actually did their building, that built the place. I think there are some strict measures that the authority is supposed to take concerning that. Like such engineers their certificates should be revoked, and also the government should ensure the government should ensure that they put strict measures on whatsoever building they are approving.
All right, a cross-section of Nigerians there expressing their views on the spate of the collapse of buildings in the country. We have guests with us in the studios, as well as, I believe, from Lagos, to also discuss this issue. First, let's welcome architect Festus Njoku. Njoku is the president, Nigerian Institute of Architects. Pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning,
Nigerians.
Okay. Also here with us in the studios is town planner Mukhtar Galadima. Of course, is the former chairman of the Abuja chapter. That's the FCT chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. But substantively, he is director in the Department of Development Control, also in the FCT. Mukhtar Galadima, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning,
Nigerians.
Okay. From our Lagos Network Center, we have engineer Fumi Banjoko, who is a construction expert. Engineer Banjoko, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
In Nigeria.
Yes, Kingsley, just to also say that we are expecting the president of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, that's Kuren, Engineer Kashim Ali. Any moment from now, he'll be joining us live here in the studio. But let me welcome all of you to today's program. And I don't know where to start now, because this is it's a very serious situation. But let's begin with the incident that happened in Lagos. That structure is said to be a 4-story building, and it's not a new building. It's not a new structure. It's been in use for quite a while. So obviously, people have been, residing there. People have been, using the building and all that. Suddenly, it came crashing down. So, what beyond the normal reasons that we give, what could have gone wrong? And I'd like to start from the Lagos Network Center, where Engineer Fumi Banjoko, who is a construction expert, is. What do you think could have gone wrong?
Well, for starters, buildings are designed for specific purposes. And why a building is designed for residential, you expect a particular number of people to stay in a building. The change of use of buildings is a major problem. You might have overloading, overpopulation, that's one. Two, structurally, buildings have lifespan, and it depends on the design. What kind of foundation was used? A number of times you have poor workmanship and non-experts building. But then when you say suddenly, I don't think there was anything sudden. There will have been signs on that building. There will have been cracks. There will have been movements. But then nobody was responding or taking note of it. So the day it happens, it becomes sudden. And that's a major problem here. On the island especially, the use of buildings keeps changing. Most residential buildings have become commercial. So you have more dead load than design. You have them, maybe that building has been used for storage before, even of properties. So on most of those buildings, the ground floor is shops, second, third floor, they're used as storage buildings. So I don't know even how long the building has been used as a school. Or maybe it was first a warehouse, then a school, I know. And those are major issues to deal with.
Okay, but Engineer Banjoko, I will still with you. Give us a sense of the impression you get whenever you drive in and around Lagos Island. You look at a number of those buildings. In the first instance, they look pretty unsightly. You cannot judge a building's integrity, of course, by mere looks. But you have seen, I believe, over the years, the sudden rise of story buildings on the island, and questions obviously will arise as to how and why those buildings keep springing up. And I'm sure every 1 or 2 rainy seasons, we have usually again building collapse with all kinds of fatalities. What do you just think when you drive in and around parts of central Lagos?
For major observation, as you said, rightly said, those buildings just spring up. And I think they spring up for economic and commercial reasons. Suddenly, in cities, value of land is high. So I guess people go for commercial reasons. To the way they are constructed, obviously you're right when you say, well, a building is not, you cannot determine the strength of a building by its external look. However, to a large extent, when the external look is so bad, it gives you a good impression about what could have gone into the construction. Most of them, you just find out they work on previous foundation. I very much doubt if the foundations are proper and properly done. Most likely they just go on raft or whatever foundation is there, and they add floors as they like. Most of the buildings don't show any professional touch. From external look, looking externally alone gives you an idea of the internal. I very much doubt if professionals are involved in a lot of the buildings. I doubt if they had good structural works, if at all there are any structural engineers that worked on them. I also very much doubt, I believe the buildings are just copied. A model is there, the man on my right did this, and they just do exactly the same to the next one, and they keep going floor to floor. So mere looking, without even a test, those buildings don't look sightly. They don't look like buildings that will stand the test of time, like what has just happened. As a professional, that's what I would say, even without doing a test.
Thank you, Engineer Fumi Banjoko, for the points that you have marshaled out. And just to say that while you were speaking, Engineer Kashim Ali just walked into the studio. Let me quickly welcome him because my next question will be directed to him. Engineer Kashim Ali, thank you for joining us on the program today. And just to also say that this is not... Today's program really is not just for academic exercise. We're trying to see if we can put a finger to the real issues that really cause building collapse and probably come up with solutions for decision makers, of course, to work on and probably find a lasting solution to it. Engineer Kashim Ali, I know you've been asked this question several times, but specifically to the incident in Lagos, what comes to your mind?
Thank you very much. I first of all see lack of humanity in Nigerians. I see greed. Because if you look at that structure, it has metamorphosed from what it was originally to what it is now. if you consider there's only a penthouse, and then of all the decisions, the most unreasonable one is to put this school on the top floor. Because a school premises is first and foremost more like a public place. Parents come in and go out, friends come in and go out, people come in to make inquiries. So if you, for instance, estimated that you will have a class that will take, say, 30 children, you could have in a day traffic flow there exceeding 20 because of inquiries, parents coming and all the rest. And a structure that was already fragile, you are now making it even more dangerously so by increasing the level of dynamic load that will come. So because dynamic load creates vibration, and those things will get down to the foundation, and with an unstable foundation, what you get is what we got. But so I liked your approach this time. I think we're not even looking at the causes. It's not the only building. Many buildings in Isaleko have exceeded their shelf life.
That's why I'm going to ask you specifically, because you've said greed, and of course the fact that that building, probably had other loads, extension. Does Koren feel a sense of, responsibility, a sense of guilt, over this incident?
A sense of responsibility, yes, but guilt, no. Because we have discharged our responsibilities. We do have what we call the Nigerian regulation monitoring, and we don't have the power of enforcement. But for every ARM we have the development control or building plan approval office in every state as members, and we have the Nigerian police force also on the membership. We do go around, and when we see some of these things, we indicate them, we advise, because we don't have the power to even seal a building, let alone pull it down. We do advise. And some of what you see, those markings, are the consequences of those kind of pieces of advice that come to government. But sometimes when this happens, it takes now a political will to do the right thing. So we don't feel the sense of guilt because we discharge our responsibility in truth.
Okay, Engineer Kashim, thank you very much. Let's bring in our architect Festus Njoku, who is the president of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Let me issue this alibi on behalf of architects by saying that it is unlikely that professional architects who are on your register could be the ones designing some of those structures that you find on Lagos Island. I mean, let me just issue that. However, what is it that the NIA, that is the Institute of Architects, has on its own in the course of the frequent occurrences of building collapse in the country found that? Are your members either complicitous or negligent?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think most of this collapse has not been traced to a professionally registered architect. It's either because Nigerians like cheap things. They go for what is cheaper for us. The consultant charges this amount. So if this student just came out of the architectural school, a medical doctor who has just been, you don't see him going to surgery on anybody. But here, he's in his final year. You already giving him a job to go and design for you, multi-story buildings. So most of the time when it happens, we come, who is the architect, and you see his name is not on the register. So what do? It means that the person who hired him is negligent. First of all, how do you know register? Ask for his practice license. If you show me your practice license, any restaurant will have a practice license, which is renewed yearly. So once it's like that, we are absolved of any complicity.
What is precisely the role of the institute? Is it just to, get a catalog of, people you call registered architects?
No, the role of the institute is to make sure, first of all, there is the regulatory body, Architect Registration Council of Nigeria, that registers the architects. The institute is some association where, all of us are doing the same thing. So when this person is registered, we know where our members are working. And we don't work alone. To get up a building is not just architect, go and do this. It starts from, first of all, the land surveyor goes to the site to give you the perimeters, then give you the contour levels. You now get the soil engineer to do the soil test. Is this soil stable? The type of soil he gives you shows you the type of foundation you will use. Then the architect come in and designs. He visualizes how the building, the space relationships, and all that. When he finishes, the structural engineer is right there with him. Now, for a structural engineer, this building may be a hospital, it may be an airport. It doesn't matter for him. This is the area of slab. I have to put my columns here, stiffen the building. Let me use this example. As an architect, I can make a building, I make a model on paper. It's the same building looking in a miniature form. Suppose I take a heavy weight, maybe a block, or somehow I fall on that building. Of course, it will come down, it will crash. But this is the engineer, and we are using real materials now. He puts up the columns where it is. It's not something he will just guess. Okay. It's by a scientific process.
Sorry, Kingsley. When you see structures like the one that just collapsed, your members, do you have a responsibility of saying, okay, maybe doing something, taking action?
Okay. Look at it this way. The building Gola is a dilapidated building, very old, in Lagos. We don't go saying, look at this building. Well, we are not happy seeing the state of dilapidation it has gone. I'm surprised that somebody even takes his child to that building, that environment to go to school. Well, let's assume that people living near there. I've once gone to a reception of a wedding. The hall was on first floor. When I was looking at the size of the columns, I took fright. I won't lie to you. I took fright and said, this thing can come down, because they were so slender to carry about 3 or 4 floors. And I was just on the first floor to see the size of the columns.
Did you get out of the place?
Exactly.
I got immediately. I got as fast as I can.
But you see, Kingsley, that's precisely what I'm asking.
That's right. Okay, well, Claire, let's bring in the town planner. That's Mukhtar Galadima, from the perspective of development control. Now, development control has a range of duties, but what we find is land misuse. Land misuse, whether here in the FCT or in most urban centers. Why has this persisted?
Thank you. First and foremost, as a regulator, I feel deeply touched, and my heart goes to the families of the bereaved and the victims of the unfortunate incident. Coming to the issue of land use misuse, there are different perspectives as regards to the issue of land use misuse. Sometimes, as a result of the city dynamics, you have some of these changes. And the best way to handle these changes is to undertake a deep study of how such changes can be accommodated. Taking the case of a typical example in Abuja, the case of Aditokombo, Ademola Crescent, and Aminu Kano Crescent. By the time you look at it critically, you will see that in the initial design, there must have been some defaults in such a way that you have your houses facing a major arterial road directly. And then some of them, On the other side, you have commercial activities. So this kind of a symbiotic relationship takes place, and then you have some of these changes. But there are other changes that cannot be accommodated. When you go into the inner streets, where it's supposed to be exclusively residential, and then some of these changes are taking place. We, as a regulatory agency in the FCT, in fact, we have commenced the process of either you revert or we revoke, because we have the provision in the certificate of occupancy and even in the building plan approval we granted you, because you are expected to use that particular structure for the purpose it was designed, allocated, planned, and approved. So before the end of second quarter, these things, definitely, I assure you, will be reversed.
Okay, let me...
No, Claire, yes. At what point does development control come in? Let's say, I mean, you have your design from the architect, you have your structural designs, you have your approvals, yes. M&E and architectural designs and so on and so forth. Then construction begins. At what point does development control get in? Is it when you have roofed and finished, when you are using 10 mm instead of 16 mm for your reinforcement? When does development control come in? And why is it that development control fails to come in at the material time while the building is still going on?
Development control comes in at the initial design stage, because your architect, before you commence the design process, normally seek and obtain information as regards to what type of development is it expected on that particular site, particularly in the planned city like Abuja, because each plot has a land use prescription. So your architect or your consultant is expected to come to Department of Development Control and make inquiries on what is to be developed at that particular plot. If you satisfy all the normal processes and approval granted, development control comes in at the setting out stage to ensure that what was approved is what is being implemented. So at every stage of that development, development control plays a role, including the usage stage. But one fundamental problem that cut across all the stages of building construction and usage, societal attitude.
Okay, thank you. Kingsley, are you done?
I mean, what is societal attitude?
If I should go further, the societal attitude, as I said, cut across all stages. The pre-design, the pre-construction stage, during the construction stage, and post-construction stage. And at each of these stages, maybe during your design, the architect mentioned, you don't patronize quacks, but because we want to cut costs, my seniors say, greed. So many other parameters like that played a role and leads us to these unfortunate incidents. Even we in the system, we have some of those that compromise because they are part of the general society. But however, as administrators also, we handle them accordingly as provided by the public service rules and regulations.
Okay, Kingsley, you know, I was going to ask again just that how is it that when a structure or the owner of a structure decides to extend, you know, his structure beyond the original concept and design, development control, you know, experts, you know, I mean, it eludes you. Because that's exactly what has happened in the case of this structure in Lagos. It has, probably the foundation was meant for maybe a story building, and it's extended to a 4-story building.
Esma, I think very important to mention. You see, as I said, this societal attitude is very, very critical in our Nigerian aspects of everything we call Nigeria. As I said, I cannot absorb that we don't have bad eggs. But if you have a good head, we always ensure, we go around, because sometimes you don't say, officers go and do this. Go there yourself and see it. Recently, we have to seal a lot of sites because some of this attitude.
You know, I'm wondering, do you have enough personnel to go around?
That is one thing. We don't have enough personnel, but we are making new ways. Okay. We are going into collaboration with professional bodies, just like my senior said. Because no matter, in fact, the term adequate is something that you have to look at it from another perspective. So this adequate word that we cannot get it all, so we have to go into collaboration with professional bodies, with consultants outside, in such a way that, okay, now, we are going to employ you to help us monitor a particular district. Anytime you see anything that you know is wrong, report back. We as an enforcement agency will enforce.
Okay.
There's a question that I want to reserve. I want to first take that question to Engineer Banjoko in Lagos, back here in Abuja for Engineer Kashim Ale, who is president of COREN. And it has to do, of course, with your experience in the construction industry, especially when there is alteration of usage. Does it appear to be the case that the authorities are more interested in revenue to say, okay, this is the amount you are going to pay, or where there has been a deviation from the originally approved plan? When they come around with their bucket and red paint, they want to come and mark X on it. They just say, okay, come and see us in the office. After that one, they will issue you some bill. You pay the bill, and thereafter you can proceed. Is this harming the integrity of the structures? Is it that the development control officers, as I said, are more interested in the IGR than ultimately in the integrity of the structures and safety of the users of that particular property?
I will say yes. However, do they really get IGRs? Because before you can change the use of a property, they definitely have to go back to the designs. So even if you collect money, the designs will not still work. If building has been designed as a one-story building, for instance, and is on the 4th floor, there is no way, and it's been built before, no matter the amount of money they collect, if they're able to collect any money, I don't see how that building will come with an approval. But more often than not, you see the red signs, but nothing is done to those buildings. And I would stretch a little bit further. The town planner now, forgot the name, was talking about societal control attitude. If a building has been standing as a 2-story building, for instance, and is going to 4 stories, the neighbors should shout. The people around should be the one that should report, even before professional bodies are coming in. But then, somebody has a design for 1 story. After 2 years, it goes to 3, 4. The neighbors are not talking. You have red mark or yellow marked on the building before.
Oh, shame. Sorry, we have a freeze there from Engineer Banjoko. Engineer Banjoko, we hope to be able to return to you. Engineer Kashimale, please take it from there.
Okay, let me just take it from what this issue of responsibilities of neighbors. Many years ago, we were doing one short course with the German instructor on issue of how to collect revenue for sewage. And he said, in Germany, if your neighbor sees you carrying a jerry can, even if it's 10 liters of water, he will call the authorities to report you. Because you are going to change the authority of 8 liters of sewage. Because to calculate how much sewage you pay for is the amount of water you take. If you consume 10 liters of water, you pay for 8 liters of sewage. That is how patriotic they are many years ago. But our culture are resolved for some of the things we have. People will you have an enemy, your neighbor can become your enemy forever just because you reported to the authorities. But the authority has only a procedure. They only control. For instance, if you are living in a neighborhood and your neighbor wants to change the character of his building, They won't grant him approval until you consent. There's a consent form you must sign before they will approve such alteration to his build or her building. So those are these things. But coming back to the real issues now, the procedure in what, for us in engineering, nothing is impossible. If you have a bungalow, you want to convert it to 100 stories, it's possible. It's only the issue of how you want to do it. So often those who want to do this want to cut corners. So they use all means to circumvent the procedures. For instance, I have been involved in an investigation where somebody had a mall properly designed by a firm of architects. They sealed it. They had the structures done by a firm, a consultant, sealed it. They took it to the government control, got approval. Then they now told the architect, thank you very much. We have in-house personnel to supervise the construction. Structural engineer, thank you very much. They disengage them properly. And it's allowed in practice. Because there are 3 stages in practice. You can terminate at any point without any prejudice. So they did that. When they started, the provision on the border line use, it's in Abuja here, was that you have a large space because it's a mall, a parking area. The man saw that that parking area was too big. He chose to now extend the mall. But he didn't go back to his consultants to help him. He did it on his own. He just pulled the beams and the columns about 15 meters without design. So while still in construction, once he pulled that, the team pulled the whole building down. And by the time investigation commenced, we were very happy, very excited. When the government control gave us the record of the architect, and I was, oh God, at least we have caught professionals today. When the guy he gave us a letter of disengagement, and the time, in fact, they heard about the collapse much later. They didn't even hear it had collapsed, that their structure had collapsed. So that is the thing. Then we now say, where is the engineer? They say he was killed by the collapse. But no engineer was there. But of course he said somebody had been killed. What can you say? But these are the thing is truly the truth about our situation. These things are not technical problems. They are purely societal problems. Irresponsibility carried to high heights. And lack of also political, I say it with all sense of responsibility. You will recall in Abuja here, there was some rascality at a point, and structures were put even on sewer lines. I had cause, because of my involvement, I had cause to do some study. There was a case of a house that, from literature review, where they put a structure like unknowingly on a sewer line. The structure went down, because every structure will settle to a point. You design it, you know where it will settle up to, and that is a safe point where it will settle forever. Now, the thing settled on that sewer line, cracked it. So anytime the sewer, it comes and penetrates, it soaks the slab, the floor slab. So the floor slab is always moist, but not moist with clean water now, but with sewer. So the children were always falling ill because children play on the ground, they roll, and sometimes they make contact with but when they go to the hospital, they'll be well. They come back again, they get sick. So there has to be an investigation of the house to see what was causing, why is it home? And they now saw that there was a bit of some slight foul smell. But you know, when this foul smell comes, sometimes you put either you put sand, you put all kinds of to kill instead of identifying the odor and taking it away. People would just shield it with some other thing. It was found that the building had. So we use that for advocacy. On Accra Street, there are all kinds of things like that. And that's how those structures had to be pulled down. It took a political will to do that. We need political will in this country because Isaleko the worst has not happened.
Yes, in Isaleko.
Lagos has become a modern city. They want it to be a mega city. Mega cities are re-evolving. Go to Kuala Lumpur. I went to see one massive structure that was built in the days to house men, but they now say it is not in tandem with modern practice. They are pulling it down to put People in Lagos should be using condominium now because they are the most advanced people in Nigeria. Anybody in Lagos is who are 70 years old, who are highly educated. In fact, I know somebody who is 90, whose father is a graduate. You know, it's not the same thing in other parts of Nigeria. They must show that to other people. They must have the courage to do things.
Engineer Kashim, what you are saying, you know, we're just talking about building collapse now. Let's leave out the other aspect of fire prevention and fire protection. Because some of those alleyways and irregularly designed and constructed buildings on Lagos Island, well, as Nigerians would say, God forbid, if there is a fire incident, you will have a major challenge, you know, even getting to the particular scene itself. And after a while, they will run short of water, even though the lagoon is just nearby. Obviously, because you don't have hydrants, you know, constructed in those particular areas. But there's one point I would like Architect Festus Njoku to also speak to. Engineer Kashim Ale was talking about the disengagement, formal disengagement of professionals, architects, structural engineers, and the others by a client after the design and approval. There have also been reports of internal competition and therefore displacement of one professional by the others. That sometimes some architects, you know, will purport to be experts across the entire value chain. And therefore, you know, yeah, they will design, they don't go and get a structural. They said, no problem, we have a structural engineer who works with us. He will help you design. M&E will also help you design. Then you get approval. They say, I will supervise the construction of the project. Don't worry, so that everything is kept within. Why do we have this?
Well, what happens is this. Like myself, maybe if I design a house, I've been working with a particular engineer. So if you engage me, I'll ask you, do you have your engineer? If he's qualified, work with him. If not, I have engineers working with me. But the issue really is not in the supervision aspect, which is what he was saying. It's another area we have to be very careful. I had a 8-story building in this Abuja. When we were being designed, I just left, I think for a 4-day trip. By the time I came back, they've already covered the foundation. The speed at which I got suspicious, can you open this up? Because the soil was very strong and so we thought this is very strong. The contractor wanted to cut costs, only for him to now leave off the foundation part, just the block on the... So the effect of this is that the weight wouldn't be spread over a wider area. So it's just like pin, point going into the ground. So if I say, immediately, it's a very big contractor, but his man on site, sorry, so don't report it, don't, quickly dismantle everything, start all over. Then they did the right thing. Suppose I wasn't there, or I came after a week later, and they are building. Okay, they must have finished foundation by now. I will assume. So that's why it's important we supervise what is to be done. Eventually, the problem may start years later.
You know, Kisley, I just wanted to ask, because we've all been talking about, you know, cutting corners, you know, engaging quark or using substandard materials. But have we also stopped to ask why people who own story buildings, you know, do not use professional, you know, or experts, or do not use quality materials? Is it that professionals in terms of architects, engineers, civil or structural engineers are too expensive? They're not within reach? Can we also address that? Okay. Yes, please.
I think that's where we have to correct societal impression. I give you a typical example, the one that happened in Port Harcourt. The person engaged a student who hasn't finished. And that student, just like what I say, engaged his fellow students in structural engineering and all that. And the building came down. When it came down, the same man who engaged the people and paid them peanuts now hired a son to come and defend him in the tribunal. Do you get it? So he knows. Why didn't he go for another student lawyer? Are you getting me? Now, lives are already involved. He's now, because his head is about, so he gets a son to, why didn't he at that material time get the right, what is important? This building will cost 50 million. What is wrong if you give 5 million or 10 million for the cost of designing it? You want it to be 100,000 naira, but the building is 50 million. So the consultants are a bit, because they will do the right thing. Because as you give me my license, my future is tied up there. So I cannot get my name messed up.
Yeah, that's right. Architect Njoku, thanks a lot. I mean, the question Claire raised is a very pertinent one, particularly for Nigerians. Don't cut corners. A professional might be expensive at the takeoff point, but a professional will inoculate you from the challenges that you get to face with your construction. For those who, of course, who have been involved in construction work, I don't know whether Lagos is still okay. For both Engineer Kashim Ali and Banjoko, I would like very quickly to make a comparison. We're talking about land use. Maybe the soil types are probably different, but if you go to Onitsha, for instance, you still see the same stack of story buildings, but apparently less incidents of building collapse versus Lagos, for instance, where, as we know, this one has gone down, unfortunately. Every other rainy season, you will find structures coming down. How do you explain the difference?
Soil type.
No, well, it's actually... Onitsha too was an interesting case. The engineers had a running battle. In fact, there was physical attack on the engineers in Onitsha because people said they have been building for 50 years. Yes, somebody will say, look at you, where were you born? So the thing resulted in going to physical. In fact, they went to court. The case was decided in favor of the engineers. They said, one group said they had Contractors Association of Nigeria, that they are authorized to build any type of thing. And they would say, no, you can't do that unless you have a registered engineer. Anyway, the case was decided in favor of engineers, and now there's a lot of complaints. Even the governor was happy with that and said we should help. So the engineers now are helping to help the main control in Anambra State generally with approval of doing. That's why those things are not coming down. There was an integrity test on most of them, and some of them were found to be, because sometimes soil, luck can be on your side sometimes. It's only when you want to be a bit more ambitious, then you go, because if you've done something somewhere, you work, and if you did 2 stories, you work, then you now say you are now ambitious, you want to do 5 or 6, then you say, look, you have exceeded your limit. So that is it. Because, you see, the soil character varies. God, in His infinite mercy, created all kinds. The way human beings are different, even twins are different. That's why look, the soil in this your plot can be totally different from the next plot.
At edges, yes.
That is how things are. Look, for instance, Accra is by the coast, like Lagos. But the soil in Accra is far, far more stable than that of Lagos. To put a structure in Accra, you don't need to do piling, no matter how we don't pile in Accra. But here, you must pile, because of the circumstances of Lagos. So, but in all the cases, what we advise is that use professionals. That's why people went to school. The problem is of whether it is costly or not. Look, the truth is we are just being dishonest. For a structural failure, it's group punishment, it's collective punishment. If I challenge the investigative journalist to go and find out the owner of that property, his own personal house.
Yes, I'm sorry, Engineer Kachibali. We've run out of time, really, because we have a second, equally very, very touching topic we need to talk about. But I'd like briefly, in very few words, Engineer Banjoko, enough of all these wake-up calls. I mean, one building collapsed, people say, okay, it's a wake-up call. What should we be doing right now? Please, in very few words.
Well, we should be doing more monitoring from who handles the job. Does he have a design? Is it well designed? The society, neighbors, should also be involved in what is happening around them. That way, we avoid calamity. I believe every structure, even before it comes out, you will see signs. There will be cracks, there will be shifting, there will be noise. Everything noticed and observed should be dealt with by the owner, by the community, before there is another calamity. And that way we'll play safe.
All right, Engineer Fumi Banjoko, construction expert, joining us from our Lagos Network Center. Thank you very much for your participation in our discussion this morning. We also would like to appreciate the other participants, Mukhtar Galadima, who is a director in the Department of Development Control in the FCT. He's a town planner. Thank you for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
Our appreciation also to architect Festus Njoko, who is president of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Then we'd like to thank always President of COREN, that's the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, Engineer Kashim Ali. Thank you for being with us again on Good Morning Nigeria. Well, we have a number of tweets, but unfortunately we are out of time. We cannot take them, but let's express our appreciation, Claire. Muhammad Bashiru Meza, Francis Jethro, Okoche Jackson, Ahmed Ibrahim Idris, Abdul Karim Zekari, Festus Akimboyewa, Dele Jack Solomon. We appreciate your thoughts. Some of the issues you raised have also been touched on by our guests. All right, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with aviation safety.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. Not be only to connect lights. Come you and yourself now. Now wow. Oh boy, come down now. Oga Kasali electrician, who will they look for with this? Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, letting him talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from off.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria. Let's talk aviation safety now. And last Sunday's incident involving 737 MAX 8 airline en route Addis Ababa to Nairobi has been generating safety concerns, of course, among countries. But the Nigerian government has assured Nigerians that such aircraft is not flying, of course, the Nigeria's airspace, and, of course, has issued a ban to that effect. Now, that will be our next discussion. Kingsley.
All right, Claire. Of course, as you said, there are a number of safety concerns that have been raised, and a number of countries where the MAX 8 737 is in use, those aircraft have been grounded until further notice. Let's quickly introduce our guests who are joining us here in Abuja as well as in Lagos. From Lagos, we have our regular guest on aviation matters, Captain Roland Iyaye, is a former managing director of the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency. Captain Iyaye, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria, and good morning, Kingsley and Claire.
Okay, and from our Kaduna studios, we understand that we don't have the all clear yet. We have another guest who will be joining us from Kaduna. He's a veteran pilot. Here with us in the Abuja studios, Captain Mukhtar Usman. He is the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. That's the regulator of the aviation industry in the country. Captain Usman, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and Godi Ike, an aviation expert, is also here in the studios.
Good morning.
All right. Claire?
Yes, Kingsley, let me again. Okay, I'm told we have Kaduna right. Of course, we've established connection. And we have Captain Mohammed Joji, former Managing Director of Nigerian Airways. Thank you, Captain, for joining us for this discussion. All right, gentlemen, what we know now is that the black box involving, of course, of the 737 MAX 8 airline has been sent to Paris for, investigation. What exactly can we tell, when such, I don't know, fatal, incident happens? What could go wrong in an aircraft? Let me start with Captain Usman.
Thank you very much. Well, several things could go wrong. However, aviation is one of the most regulated industry in the world. And whatever is designed is tested properly. But of course, if something can go wrong, whether the equipment, the human being, we have factors that will cause accidents. However, you don't jump to conclusion when there's an accident. It has to be thoroughly investigated, collection of the facts, analyzed, and then findings are made. And of course, flowing from those findings, recommendations are made to prevent such from happening again.
All right, let's just go around the other guest. Captain Roland Iyaye, in Nigeria at some point, there was concern about the age of aircraft being used in the country, such that there was a ban on aircraft older than 20 years or so. Now, implicit in that was the received wisdom that a newer aircraft would apparently be much safer. But here we are, in the space of 5 months in Indonesia and then in Ethiopia, brand new aircraft, relatively brand new aircraft, Boeing 737, which is the workhorse of the Boeing range of aircraft, MAX 8, got involved in this catastrophic incidents. Just surmising, without necessarily having a report from the AIB, that's the Investigation Bureau, what's probably at play here?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Like the DG said, it will be merely speculating at this point to talk about what could have gone wrong. But I think what we know, given what has happened, is that I've had the time to review NASA's aviation safety reporting system, which is a voluntary, non-punitive, and a system that's been designed for pilots to report, or aviation professionals to report incidents they may have seen that are not normal, such that they can learn, or something can be pruned from that for experiences to be learned over time. Now, in reviewing the particular results of a search that I conducted, I found out that there'd been about 11 reports regarding this particular type. Now, it needs to be said that the Boeing 737 aircraft basically has been the workhorse of the industry over the last 50 years. The 737 MAX 8 and 9 are the third iteration, the variant that's been come out of the classics, the NGs, and now we have the MAXs. Now, what is very different in this particular design, which needs to be understood, is that the 737 MAX series is the same as the 737 we always had, save for the fact that we have newer engines. Now, you need to understand that for manufacturers, they look at the economics of the business so that airlines can become more profitable. I mean, margins in the airline business are very thin. So invariably, to make sure that airlines can stay longer in business, they have to continue to tweak and ensure that they can instill some sort of a profitability in the system. Now, what has happened with the MAX is that they have installed much larger, more fuel-efficient engines. If you take the fact that we have about 40% of our cost component operating an airline to be fuel, I mean, that is a welcome development for airlines. Now, that is what they've done with the MAX. And in doing that, they've had to put in certain systems to provide for a situation where you would not have the aerodynamic stability of the aircraft destabilized. And that's what you call the MCAS. That's the maneuvering, augmentation, and maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, which has been installed on the aircraft. Now, these are the only differences in terms of issues, systems that have been installed on the aircraft. Now, what people have said reporting in the SRS that I read, they've had issues. I mean, I've read about 2 issues where on departure, the pilot sort of engaged the autopilot, and there was a nose-down attitude. And he quickly disengaged the autopilot. And, of course, he continued with the operation safely. There was also another report where it was reported that the pilot found that the manual for this particular aircraft was inadequate, in which case certain systems installed on the aircraft were not found in the manual. These are ongoing debates as we speak in the US. Now, let us understand this. The age of an aircraft, which is particularly your question, the age of aircraft is not really the issue in question. What is in question when you talk about old aircraft is the airworthiness of the aircraft based on the maintenance status of the aircraft. You can actually have old airplanes flying in the airspace safely as long as the maintenance are carried out and are done as at when due. However, I mean, in this case, you have an aircraft that's barely 5 months old and you have this sort of catastrophic event. Now, the issue is not so much of the age, but in this particular case, we really, I mean, like I said, we'll be speculating to be talking about what could have gone wrong. The jury's out there, of course, in terms of what I've just said about the systems, but I know for certain that age has no bearing on whether or not an aircraft is airworthy or not, except, of course, the maintenance is not done as at when due. Now, if it is done, then, of course, you have a safe airplane. What it means, that's essentially for airlines, when you operate an older airplane, it costs you a lot more, to operate. So that's essentially what the problem is with the age of the aircraft. It has no bearing whatsoever on the safety or otherwise of the aircraft.
Thank you, Captain Roland Yayi. I know several interviews or discussions we've had with you, you've always emphasized on that. But let me go to Kaduna, Captain Mohammed Joji. Captain, what exactly do we know now about the previous crash involving also the 737 MAX 8 in Indonesia? And can we safely say or assume that whatever we probably found out from that incident could have happened in this recent case?
Good morning again. From my statistics, it shows that there are 355 of such aircraft built, including 2 from business jet, operated by 52 airlines in 32 countries. So the aeroplane is doing very well. Now, but the concurrent accident of the, what you call the Lion Air aircraft of the 29th October 2018, and that of the Ethiopian airline of 10 March 2009, raised a lot of safety concern about the aircraft. So, you know, sometimes you can speculate here and there.
All right, sorry, Captain Jojo, we're trying to work on your audio. Once we are done with that, we'll return back to you. But let me pose the question to Godi Ike here in the studio, who is an aviation expert.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, it's important for the world to understand the business competition that's been going on between Airbus and Boeing. You know, at a time in the history of the aviation world, Boeing was said to be ahead, and then not too long after, Airbus overtook, and then it became a kind of a rat race. I mean, first of all, the A320 CEO came out, and then quickly Boeing followed with the 737 NG, the one they call the new generation, and then shortly after. Airbus came up with the A320 Neo, and then came Boeing with this current Max. That is, yes, it's actually a series of 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yes, depending on whether it's for local use, the smaller ones, that's a 7, and then regional 8, and then of course extended and continental up until 10. But the most popular of them happens to be the Max 8, which because of the advertisement of the efficiency of the LEAP engine, that was what Captain Iyayi was trying to describe to you. The LEAP engine, installed in it. LEAP, what they mean by that is leading edge aviation propulsion engine, LEAP. But then. Boeing is making it look as if they were the first to install LEAP. No, LEAP was installed in Neo, the Airbus Neo, before Boeing came up with Max.
But
and
if we fast forward,
that's fine. Yes. I'm laying this background for you to really understand what went wrong. I mean, Airbus installed theirs, and it didn't have the problem that we are having in the Boeing one. What Boeing did that was different was that they installed it in such a way that the engine protruded, a little. Further towards the nose. Normally, if you look at most of airplanes, especially the older 737, you will find out that the engine port stops less than 2 inches from the edge of the wing. But for this one, it's in order to get some more thrust and more efficiency in fuel consumption, apart from the bigger bypass ratio. That's technical. You may not bother with that. Bigger bypass ratio that ensures that you consume less fuel. That thrusting out of the engine from the wing, the way it's mounted, causes this aerodynamic issue that each time you put thrust, it lifts the airplane into what is known as a high angle of attack. Normally an airplane takes off and you bring down the pitch and you remain, level, and then of course rise vertically as you're going to your assigned. But then if you have an airplane in this position, which is known as the high angle of attack, you displace the wind that is running over those wings. The plane slows down, the airspeed slows down. And every fixed wing airplane has got a minimum speed that keeps it in the air. Once you approach that minimum speed, the plane begins to stall. And as soon as it stalls, it stops flying. Even when you put on your full power, once you stall, the plane stops flying. You know what it does? It falls vertically of the sky. So the engineers of Boeing installed that, knowing fully well that it had that aerodynamic issue of always popping up the nose. They now design a software. This is the MCAS, software, which duty was anytime the sensor sensed a high angle of attack, it will kick in, and then cause the elevator. The elevator, the elevator is those horizontal membranes you find at the rear. You have them this way, and yes,
sorry,
on the rear. Yeah, that's right. You have your rudder, and then those membranes. Well, it's called an elevator, but it doesn't really elevate an aircraft. All it does is change your pitch down, pitch up, by moving this way to give you a pitch up and moving down. So the down is known as positive movement. The up is known as negative movement. So the MCAS activates that elevator to go in order to tip up the tail and point down, the nose and give you. But my imagination is that sensor from what happened in Indonesia, the sensor installed in it knows when to kick in, but it's not intelligent enough to know when to kick out. Yeah, and yes, and so we must draw from what happened in Indonesia, and I quite understand when professionals, especially practitioners in flying, will say we don't want to really say anything yet until investigations are carried. Well, that's understandable, but you can at least draw from. Here was in Indonesia, a takeoff. And shortly after, the pilot was struggling with control of the airplane, sought permission to get back, and then making an attempt to do his 180 degrees that would take him backwards. He sank. Yes, and nose down. And again, one other thing that the world must understand in this whole game going on, because I call it a dirty business game going on. When Boeing decided to insert MCAS, they wrapped it up in secrecy because there was no chance of getting certification for that. And when they were asked, why did you not put it in your FCOM? FCOM is the Flight Crew Operations Manual, which pilots will always, yes, if you have any issue that you really do not understand, you quickly make reference to it. One will be flying, and his assistant will just make reference, find out the procedure to deal with that, and they quickly, a whole lot of time, pilots run into trouble in the air, passengers don't even know. And they deal with it nicely in the cockpit and continue their movement. So Boeing wrapped it up in extreme secrecy. They didn't tell anyone. Those they supplied the airplane, they didn't tell. They didn't insert it in the manual. And when that crash in Indonesia took place, and they were asked, how come you didn't tell? Oh, I mean, we believe that we had a beautiful software that would deal with those challenges, and we didn't want to inundate pilots with too much data, that they already had too much to do in the cockpit, and then adding more. But that is not the truth. The truth remains that they couldn't get certification for that, but they needed it to solve the problem of the high angle of attack that the mounting of their engines, used to do to the airplane. Remember, those LEAP engines are in Airbus near, and they are not giving these same challenges they are giving in Airbus.
All right, yeah, yes. Well, thank you very much for your technical perspective, but just to add that well, we don't have a Boeing official here responding to some of the claims that you have made. Some of them could be in the public domain, but we'll still give them the benefit of the doubt. We hope that once more investigation gets into what has happened, we would have a fuller picture of what's playing out. But I don't know whether Kaduna is clear. Okay, let's return to Captain Mohammed Georgie. Sorry, we had to deal with your audio, and that's why we returned. We made an air return, to Abuja. So back again to you in Kaduna.
Again, can you hear me? Hello, good morning. Can you hear me? Now, you see, let's clear some notion first of all. There are nothing called an all aircraft or a new aircraft. Nothing called an all aircraft or a new aircraft. An all aircraft is as good as a new aircraft if properly maintained. And a new aircraft is as bad as an old aircraft if not properly maintained. Well, luckily now, there are about 355 of such aircraft being built in about 32 countries operated by 52 airlines. So really, the aircraft is a selling kind of a machine. But the concurrent accident of the two airlines, that of Lion Air and that of Ethiopian Airlines, raised a lot of safety concern about the aircraft. That's the whole sticking point. What is the cause of the accident? According to some experts, it's called a machine called MCAS. The computer is called Maneuvering Characteristic Augmentation System. The working principle of that computer is that if the aeroplane is flying too high to stall, what you call high angle of attack, it will command the aircraft to go down a bit, nose down a bit. But if there's a fault, that computer can push the aircraft right to the sea for crash. So a safety machine becomes an albatross for the operation. But that's a switch, which a pilot can switch it off if he thinks that the computer is exceeding its operational limit.
All right. Captain George, thank you very much. But let's return very quickly to the regulator of the industry. That's Captain Mukhtar Usman. Captain Usman, we're discussing two incidents, none of it, of course, in Nigeria. And these are two incidents involving, that's Indonesia and Ethiopian Airlines, involving the same type of aircraft. But obviously, there are lessons to learn from this in terms of mounting more vigilant regulation of our industry. From your perspective, what does this entail?
Well, again, thank you very much. Taking into consideration the last two accidents that happened, the outcome of which we know the first one, the second one is still being investigated. But however, we took precautionary measures to ensure that, one, we don't register any of those series. Secondly, also, we don't allow the operation of such a series within Nigerian airspace. We did not have, and we still don't have, any operator in Nigeria that operates that kind of series aircraft, even though one has placed orders and is yet to receive, which is the order is far away from being around, which we believe by that time the investigation would have revealed, and whatever corrections that need to be made would have taken place. However, we had two other operators of that MAX that used to come to Nigeria. They're still operating to Nigeria, but not with that aircraft type. Their own aircraft type has been grounded, and we don't expect them to operate into Nigeria, as we all know that we don't allow that operation in Nigeria.
Well, in terms of, Claire, the issue has been raised about the operating manual and therefore pilot training. Is pilot training part of your remit? I mean, just to say, look, as a pilot, be sufficiently upgraded to man a certain kind of aircraft, and if so, what is the level of supervision by the NCAA with regard to this?
Well, as a regulatory agency, we issue licenses under the International Civil Aviation Organization, Annex 1, for pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, dispatchers, and others. Certain trainings are required. We have minimum standard that must be maintained before a license is issued. And even after issuing the license, we don't go to sleep. We ensure that you do the recurrent trainings to ensure that you continue to be at that same level or even higher than the minimum level for safety. As a safety organization, we are governed by the 8 critical elements of safety oversight of the International Civil Aviation Organization. And one of such is the qualification of personnel and the experience, and they have to be in sufficient number.
All right. Let me bring Captain Roland Iyayi to take this question, and of course maybe we'll come back to Godi Ike. Two questions come to my mind, and one is that particular aircraft, would it be the first time it was flown? And secondly, the pilot that flew the aircraft, was it his first time? Because if a pilot that has over 1,000 hours of flight, is it possible for such a pilot not to be conversant with the manual and the plane he has flown?
Thank you very much. Let's be very careful here. I mean, the particular crash, that's the Ethiopian crash, flight 302, the captain was reputed to have had 8,000 plus flying hours. That's a considerable level of experience. Now, in terms of how many hours he's had on type, those are facts that are going to be taken out, in the course of the investigations. There's no way a pilot would have been type rated without having adequate knowledge of the systems on the aircraft. However, one of the things that I've found going through the reporting system, like I said, is that certain pilots who have flown the type have complained about not having adequate information in the flight crew operating manual. Now, let's be clear here also. The 737, as Mr. Ike had said earlier, when you have manufacturers trying to do everything possible to optimize profit, at the same time look at safety, it's a precarious balance. Now, what Boeing has done, rather than go for a new, a clean design, was to sort of create a variant of what was the classic, the NG, and now the MAX. And all they have tried to do is just tweak this airplane to be a little bit more efficient so you can get the most out of it. Now, in doing that, for the airlines, you would not require a new type rating because the aircraft is categorized to be the same type aircraft. So to that extent, you're required to have only the same type rating. In some cases, you have what you call differences scores. This is probably what you get, when you move from the classic to the to the NG, and then maybe from the NG to the MAX. You have the variances, the differences scores, which is basically what a captain or a pilot who's been type rated on a particular aircraft undergoes before he moves up to the next airplane. So to a large extent, there's absolutely no way to be possible to have a pilot just get into the cockpit of an aircraft, not having been adequately trained in the systems of that airplane. So in this particular instance, where we're talking about this crash, like I said, it's premature at this point to start talking about possibilities of what could have gone wrong. Yes, we know about the MCAS system, but it's still speculative because the analysis that was drawn, because FAA actually had a full 7.5-minute tracking of a particular aircraft. And what they found, synonymous with what happened with the Lion Air crash, is one of the reasons they decided to actually ground the type until a thorough investigation has gone to conclude either way what could have gone wrong. Now, there are 371 aircraft of this particular type flying in the entire world. And the particular aircraft has about 5,111 orders on the books. So it is an aircraft that airlines have come to realize will be the workhorse of the future. Now, let us also understand that in 2013, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner had similar issues where we had the lithium-ion batteries just setting up on fire. Getting on fire without any sort of prompting. Now, what happened with that experience was that Boeing went back to the drawing board and they were able to come up with a system that made this particular aircraft type a lot safer. So what I expect will happen in this case is that whatever we see, the outcome of this will be a safer 737 MAX series aircraft as we go into the future.
All right, Claire, you were also going to ask Gordon Ike that question, but I don't know whether Captain Georgie is still with us in Kaduna.
Okay. Okay.
I understand that, we've lost the signal to Captain Georgie. As we speak, there are presumably thousands, if you like, hundreds of aircraft flying all around the world. Yes, when an incident such as occurred last Sunday is reported, the flying public, would raise some concern. Some persons, if not most, who are familiar with air travel continue to argue that it remains the fastest and safest means of modern travel. What are your thoughts? Closing thoughts at this time, I would say.
Yes, I agree that it is the fastest way, and I often say to anyone that bothers to listen to me that airplanes are very faithful machines. They are faithful machines. They fall off the skies because human operators can be unfaithful and dishonest. And then again, airplanes are as old as their missed checks and are as new as their checks sincerely done. What does it mean to me? I would rather fly a 20-year-old that is due for a C or D check, as the case may be, and is sincerely done. I would rather fly that than a 2-month-old that is probably due for an air check, and that air check is not done. I will enter the 20-year-old and feel safer in there from my knowledge and experience. Now, having said that, let me very quickly, bring this information that will help us. In a few words. A normal autopilot, like all the flying pilots will tell you, is if you resist the movement of your joystick as the autopilot is doing his job, it automatically disconnects and gives you back control of the airplane. But not the MCAS. The MCAS doesn't give you back. It's only when you deal with the trimming. There's this trimming knobs that keeps running in a spin. On both sides of the throttle. It goes round this way, that way, just balancing the horizontal membrane. And the information pilots needed was not given to them. Okay. Neither were they trained on the special installation made. Those were the findings in the crash in Indonesia. Right, and the world must take this home. I keep the buck right on the table of Boeing. Boeing is responsible.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We must end this conversation at this point. Again, Kingsley, it reminds me of the Titanic ship, of course, that was thought to be unsinkable. But, of course, we know what happened. But quickly, okay, I know we are closing. Is there a safer place to sit, in the aircraft? Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Once we certify aircraft safe, it's airworthy, the pilots are well-trained, the engineers that release the aircraft are well-trained, all the other personnel that work on the aircrafts are certified. There's no place that you can say it's unsafe.
So if I sit at the tail end of the aircraft, I'll be safer when any crash happens.
There are some parts of the aircraft that are more susceptible to turbulence. So if you sit at the tail, at the rear, there are some parts. But what the expert has indicated, once you are airborne, whether first class, business, or economy,
It depends on the kind of accident If you have a frontal impact, first class is not safer.
It's not safer. That's right. But the question I asked just before we wrap up, NCAA again. So look, there are thousands of aircraft in the air at the moment as we speak, but none of them is falling off the skies.
Correct.
So it remains the safest and fastest means of travel.
Certainly, yes.
All right, Kingsley. All right, we need to appreciate our tweeters, Dele Jackson Solomon again, Festus, Ahmed, Husseini Baba, Mai Okochi, and Akeji Olagbojo. Thank you, all of you. And, of course, excuse me, it's on this note we say bye-byes. We don't have much time. We'll see you on Monday by the grace of God. I am Claire Delabo Abdul Razak. Bye-bye. And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, of course, appreciating all our guests from Lagos, Captain Iyayi, Georgie from Kaduna, Mukhtar Usman, NCAA, and Godi Ike here in Abuja. Gentlemen, thank you. We're back on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy your day and then your weekend.